All right, I believe it's 6 o'clock, so welcome. I want to take a minute. I know most of you, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Derek Phillips, superintendent. And then we have Jenny Bell, elementary principal, Sean Dorman, 712 principal. So thank you all for showing up. We're just going to have hopefully a fairly quick, just informational 4-day week forum. Some goals for tonight, and if you want to look up here, we have our new board. Hopefully you can kind of see. Tonight's goals, so far, we just want to explain our process, kind of where this started, where we're at, and where we'd like to head. We'd like to answer some of the questions you have. I'm going to be the first to tell you I don't have all the answers, so if you ask a question, I may not know the answer. I'll be very honest, I'm not going to make up an answer, and I know Sean and Jenny won't either. So our goal is to gather as much information as possible. I know there's a lot of rumors. Many of you know, if you read it on Facebook, it seems to be true. But I will tell you, no decision has been made yet. Everything we're doing is to gather information. So I'd like to start off with some norms for tonight. We're going to be respectful, ask clarifying questions. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end. We can pass around the mic, or you can come up here and ask some questions if we have that time. And our goal, again, is to just help us gather information. So, where did this start? This is not something that just came about a month or two ago. I didn't go back and look at minutes, but I want to say it was probably the September 22 meeting when I was hired as interim superintendent. Some of the things we had talked about, board goals, was that to look into this 4-day week. So this isn't something that just came about. This was something that I was directed by the board to start looking into and just kind of see like, hey, is Pekin community interested in this? So some other districts right now that are going to it, Highland just voted to, Keota will probably vote and go to it. I don't think they voted yet, have they? That I know of. So they're looking at it. Saydell just did, Martinsdale, St. Mary's. Washington, I believe, was directed to start looking into it, and Keokuk, clear down in the southeast Iowa corner, is also looking into this. I know Waco and has been at it for 10 or 12 years, and then Cardinal as well. So, why specifically? I know there's some things out there. These are the 3 main reasons we're looking at it: is teacher retention and recruitment. So we want to be able to get quality staff. We want to be able to keep quality staff. We hope this will address declining enrollment, get students who want to come to a 4-day week versus a 5-day week, and we want to stay competitive. So a lot of these schools around us that have been in talks about it, if you get kind of on an island and everybody else is doing it, and we're not, and they have a competitive advantage, that could not be good for Pekin. I'm not saying these are right or wrong, I'm saying this is the reasons why we're looking into it. We started this process, and I'm going to show some data here, but we had our SIAC committee, which is a School Improvement Advisory Committee. Those were people that got voted on by the board and that were recommended by admin. And so what we did was we started talking about that in our December SIAC meeting, and they said, hey, it seems like it's worth at least looking into. And I'd be happy to, you can take pictures. I know people are taking pictures. I'm happy to put this on our website and share it out. So if you're, I like to take pictures too, and then the presenter gets halfway through and says, hey, these are on the website already. So I apologize about that. But we'll get this on our website and our Facebook page too. So December, the SIAC committee met and said, hey, let's start looking into this a little more. So we created a subcommittee from that committee and created a survey, sent that out, just pretty much like, hey, is this something we should look at or not? And so that came back, and again, I'm going to show you those results. After that, we met again as a SIAC committee and had some very specific questions now. We broke it down to parent, community, student, and staff, because of the questions were a little different. So I'm going to show some of those as of, I think I did this at 1 p.m. was about the time I pulled that. So the initial survey results, and I know this is small and I apologize, but you can kind of see the colors. This pretty much asked if all your questions were addressed, would you be interested in the 4-day week? And this is where we got the data to say, hey, looks like the community, the parents, staff, the students are interested in it. So 64.6% said yes, 25.1% said no, and 10.3% were indifferent. We had about 950 surveys taken with that. The good thing, the bad thing, that seems like a high number. We did not limit it because we didn't want to collect people, so I could have taken it as a community member, a staff member, and as a parent. So do I think people went on and tried to sabotage the data? I don't, but that's why in this next survey we started collecting data a little more specifically. And Sean and Jenny, you're more than welcome to hop in at any time, just so you know. So this is what we showed the SIAC committee, and they said, hey, it's worth looking at. So a lot of people, I know there were some comments, well, if you're a student, why the heck, it's got to be 100%. I'm going to show you that initial data. And so with that, I know students were accurate because students took it all in DENS. And we had 12 too, 7, 12. So parents, about 61% said yes, 29 no, and 10 were indifferent. And this was on the initial survey. Staff, it was 67% yes, 15.7% indifferent, 17.4% no. Students, about 70% yes, 21% no, 9% indifferent. And our parents, our community, 64.6% yes, 10% indifferent, 25% no. So as you can see, the highest was our student at about 70%. And our lowest was parents at about 61%. So either way, it wasn't, one group was way for it, one way against it. We were about 60 to 70%. So again, when we showed SIAC this, we decided, hey, it's worth looking at. So some of the questions we're going to try to address, some of these are in our FAQ, some I just put in there. We're just gonna go through this information. Again, nothing is set in stone, but I bet we're pretty darn close with some of these numbers. So our current hours, let me go back, I'm sorry. The state requires either one of two things, 180 days or 1,080 hours. I don't know of a school out of the 331, 3 districts that go by days anymore because you're a lot more flexible with hours. So we are currently on hours, which is why when you say, well, we missed a day, we've got to make up the day, not necessarily, we just have to make sure we're above that minimum. Test, there we go. Maybe can you go grab some more batteries, Sean? Yep. Sorry about that. So 1,080 hours is the minimum. Currently we are at 1,154. That was in our original calendar. With our makeup days, we're not going to quite be at that. We try to have some hours built in. Part of that is also our teacher contract. Teacher contract right now is 190 days. So we had to flex a little bit and make sure the teacher's contract was still met, while also, I'm a big believer and I don't want the state minimum for any of our kids. So we want to be as far above that as we possibly can while still not going until June 15th, right? So, like I said, currently 1,154 hours, that's about 170 days. We have some built-in extra hours for the 8 snow days and our raccoon day that we've had this year. And then we've had a couple early out and then I think a late start as well. So with the 4-day week, right now the calendar's not set. We're meeting tomorrow with the calendar committee. That's a group of teachers that really set the calendar and they take that to the school board for approval. We're meeting again tomorrow, but we have a pretty strong, outline. We're looking at about 1,107 hours and 151 days for students. So yes, that I know I talked to one person, like the math doesn't add up. How do you go 4 days only adding 30 minutes to each day and it still get there? So this is kind of how the math adds up. It doesn't quite get there, but we get, we're still, 27 hours over the state minimum. So the current calendar, which I can show, it'll be on here at the end. It's very rough, but we would currently still be done before Memorial Day, and that's going to be our goal, is still be out before Memorial Day, barring any unforeseen snow days and things like that. So that's still the goal with the schedule. So speaking to that, our current schedule, students are here. I like to call it kind of butts in seats, 8:15 to 3:30. And with a 4-day week, we would go 8 to 3:45. And how we count that, and Ann, if I'm wrong, we take out lunch because that's not instructional time. So, correct me. They say that right? Yep, 25 minutes. So that's why we're kind of at with those numbers. So again, we'd add 30 minutes to the day, and that would be 2 hours per week, and that's how we don't quite get the 1,154, but again, we're coming a lot closer. So a teacher schedule, currently they are on contract 745 to 345 at 190 days. We would say we would go 177 days. Roughly, again, we have not negotiated this with our PEA, which is Pekin Education Association yet, but I feel we have a really good relationship with them, and I think we could, we're definitely right there. So it'd be 7:30 to 4. So kids get added 30 minutes, teachers would also have 30 minutes added to their daily contract as well. So whether it's Monday or Friday, we would have those as some built-in makeup days. So like right now, we may not have to make up extra days at the end. We might go, let's say it's, again, no decision's been made, but let's say it's Fridays. We would then go on a couple of those Fridays just to make sure we make up those hours to get above that state minimum. So that has some built-in hours makeup if necessary. Again, that's the key, if it's necessary. Hopefully we don't have 8-9 snow days again, but it is Iowa. So, quality of instruction, I know that's come up. When you look at, if you want to Google search this, I didn't bring it up because it's a lot, but John Hattie did a meta-analysis of tons of different research. The biggest thing he came up with is teacher efficacy, which means how good are our teachers. And so it's not time, it's not class size, it's nothing like that. It's really how good are your teachers. And so what we would be doing with this is teachers would be coming every other Monday or every other Friday, and they would be doing professional development. And so they're going to be able to better plan to meet the needs of our students. They're going to work in PLCs, which are professional learning communities. They're going to be able to look at data, have that, a lot more time to do that. So in theory, yes, the instructional time is a little less, but with doubling the professional development, our goal is that our teachers are providing quality instruction during that time. So Monday through Friday, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. We kind of looked at places are open. Big thing, varsity activities are on Friday, and middle school activities are on Monday. Again, we do not have, we don't have a decision on 4-day week, and we definitely don't have a decision on the day yet. So those are all things that we're looking at the parent, the community, the staff, feedback on which days. But we did look at both. I know someone asked about a Wednesday in the middle. That's something that we didn't feel getting the, part of it having a tied to a 3-day weekend, but also trying to get momentum going when you start on Monday, Tuesday, and then you stop, and then you gotta start again. So we did kind of shoot that down pretty quick. But that's why we stuck on either a Monday or a Friday. So classified staff, that would be cooks, custodians, bus drivers, anybody who's really not a teacher. Some of these things we're pretty sure on. We've got a plan to where associates, they're going to work the 2 PD days. One of the things, and I haven't been to a school yet that does an excellent job at this, is we need to train our associates better. This gives us a lot of time and flexibility. The associates would not lose those hours. They could come in, we could train them, get them the necessary professional development so they can be more effective as well. Custodians, we're still 40-hour week. Bus drivers, we're still looking at, obviously if we're not going to have a full need for the 5th day, so we would look at how do we adjust pay to make sure that it's fair. And then there might be a possibility, depending on what day, we might need to have some drivers for activities and things like that and routes that we may have to go pick up. So again, that's all depending on the data that we gather. So cooks, again, they may be needed 5 days depending on survey results. If we get a lot of kids that need to be here for some childcare or things like that, we're going to have to serve them lunch. We've also talked about providing meals and delivering to Richland and Hendrick and Packwood, Farson, places like that. So those are all things, again, depending on the results, which is why it's super important, to tell your friends, tell your colleagues, whoever, fill this out, make sure we get the most accurate information. And then secretaries, they're going to still be working, so the plan would not be to reduce their salaries either. So activities, some of our students asked this, some of our parents, they're gonna have to be here the 5th day anyway, so we're concerned about that. We would allow activities to practice on days off, but they're not gonna be able to have noon practice, things like that. They would practice the normal practice time. So if it's track season and you're practicing at 3:35, Coach Idol, you're practicing at 3:35. I know you're gonna be here at 6 o'clock anyway, every morning, just because Sandy might drive him, or he might drive Sandy crazy, so he's gonna be here probably all the time anyway, but they're still going to be practicing at the same time. So we would not allow on those days off the early morning practices and things like that. It would stay consistent as they normally would. So we've talked about this a little bit. We know that there's a potential need for busing depending on the day. If it's Monday that we choose to have off, we know our middle school kids are going to need busing. And so that's something that we would work out. We would figure out a way to get our middle school kids here for practice and things like that. So this was, again, as of 1 o'clock today, some of the parent benefits. And I know, again, it's going to be a little hard to see, but again, I will share it. So scheduling appointments, and we had 97 responses to this question. Scheduling appointments was number 1. Time for family was number 2. And again, this is our parents. Number 3 was to attract and retain quality staff. Number 4 was financial benefit to the school. And number 5 was having some part-time work for students. Some of the parents' top concerns were, I think it was tied for number 1, a source of food for those in need, childcare for our community, unsupervised students, I believe that's in the home, if I remember right, is that, okay. And then length of the school day. Those were all of our top concerns by our parents that filled out the survey. Sure. No, and I'm gonna show a pie graph. So in the event of a 4-day week, how often would your school-age child or children need childcare? 65% out of 102 responses, so roughly 66 people said they would not need any weeks. 22.5, so that's roughly 23 parents said every week, and then some weeks was roughly 12 parents. So this was, again, as of 1 o'clock. This is the data we've had from our parents. So staff benefits, number 1, I'm sorry, that says concerns. So I got these backwards, I'm sorry. So even though it says staff, I'll fix that. Okay, thank you. If you just change the title there. So let's say staff, this is gonna be staff benefits. Scheduling appointments, time for planning, grading, attracting, retaining staff, and time for mental health, recharging, getting batteries fresh. So that was the staff benefits. Staff concerns was reduction in pay, impact on learning, and the longer school day. Those were the 3 top for staff. Students, we had 172 student responses. So student benefits, more time with family, opportunity to catch up on work, and job opportunities were their top reasons. Again, the 712 students took this. Student concerns, longer school day, which it says approximately 30 minutes. Extracurricular requirements, which is why I brought that up. They were concerned that they would have practice on their days off during the day, and then transportation to activities, and then impact on learning were their top concerns. Community, we've had 63 responses for community so far. Benefits, ties, scheduling appointments, attracting, retaining quality staff, and then the financial benefit to school and a more consistent calendar. Community concerns were childcare and a source of food for those in need, and then unsupervised students in the homes. So those were community concerns. So I think this was alluding to Dana's. Out of all the parents that filled it out, do you have concerns about food security for your children? So these are parents. If the district moved to a 4-day week, we had 107 responses. 1 parent said yes for their own kids. So go ahead, Sean. Oh, okay. This next one. I might need to update it. So Sean did put Hattie's research about the effect size that I was kind of talking about. But this was the one thing we did want to show that our parents had 99.1% said they were not concerned about their own children's food insecurity. So
And that was how many?
that was 107 responses, so 106. And then one person said yes.
And again, the survey's still open.
Do you know how many kids you have? Like, if they would have all answered? How many kids?
If all the parents would have answered, we have 600 kids roughly.
Yeah, so again, this is as of 1 o'clock today, so the survey's still open right now. I just pulled it up. So as you know, we'll continue to encourage people to fill out. We'll keep updating those numbers as well. So, for example, next Friday's open forum as well. Update these numbers, repost these numbers. That way people can see. That's just where we're at as of 1 o'clock.
Yep, and this is a Google presentation. So when I put it on the website and I update it on my computer, it'll automatically update on the website. So as soon as we update it, we'll try to. I'm not going to do it every single day, but we'll try to update it as much as we can, and then that should update live when you click on that link from the website. So I know there was a lot to throw at you. Again, I want to reiterate, no decision's been made. This is something we are doing everything we can to gather information to make sure that when we make a recommendation, whatever that may be, that we try to answer as many questions as possible. So next, just so you're aware too, okay, so next Friday, the 1st, is another forum. They weren't able to make it this Wednesday, but Waco, a representative from Waco schools, and then the superintendent of Cardinal schools are going to be here as well. So they're going to be able to answer from a school that just started this. If you have questions from that perspective, the longest school in the state that's been doing this, from that perspective. So there might be questions now that you're like, I really want to know from Waco how this is going. I really want to know from Cardinal. They will be here on the 1st, and if you can't make it on the 1st, let us know. We'll try to ask the questions. We'll put them on our Google presentation here, because again, we want to be as transparent as possible. I do not like fake information going around, and so we want to make sure that we're providing as much real-time and as accurate information as we possibly can. So, Q&A, what questions did we have here? Okay, yeah, go check. So this one's about how will teachers change their lesson plans to a 4-day week? Do they feel it's beneficial? According to our data so far, does that change, Sean? No, it's not going to change because I need to update it. So there were some staff concerns of that, and so the goal would be, now that we're adding that time, that extra day, it is going to have to be a little bit more condensed, and so they will have to make sure that now with that planning, that they are planning for 4 days of instruction instead of just 5. Is it going to be pretty and sunshine and rainbows the first year? Probably not, but that's something where with any teaching, you're going to be adjusting your lessons at all times, and depending on the kids anyway. So having that pacing guide, trying to make sure that if you have to move a little quicker, if you need to slow down, things like that, that's just something that we know that teachers will definitely have to adjust to a little bit.
Yeah, and one of the other areas that we've heard from staff is the want and desire for more time. To develop professionally, more time to do the things that they need to do to be more effective in the classroom. So by going to a 4-day model and having 2 days of PD is doubling that PD time for us to be able to create really effective time for teachers to have collaboration. I can speak to at the secondary level now. Part of our PLC, that professional learning community, comes at the cost of one of teachers' preps each day. Having 2 PDs, we'd be able to build that time in again to give back that time to teachers during the week, but also allow those 2 full PD days to really professionally develop these teachers to have higher quality instruction, better plan for what it looks like in their classroom on those other 4 days.
Thanks, Sean. So a couple, this one's about lunches, relying on local churches to supply meals. We wouldn't necessarily be relying on them. That's something that I've met with the Ministerial Association. They want to help somehow. And so if we have only a few kids that have food concerns, we would look at them for a little assistance, but also, you know, our head cook Natalie, that's something where we would try to figure out how many students need that, and then if we need to deliver, like I said before, that would be our goal with that.
So I have a question with that.
Go ahead, Natalie.
If you're running your daycare or childcare program on the 5th day, whatever day you don't have school.
Correct.
You have extra kids that are coming to that the daycare can't take care of, so you're gonna bring them over here and run a program like that. Where's those lunches coming from?
That's why we're trying to get to figure out how many kids we would need, whether that would be possible or not. I do know, for example, somebody contacted me, I can't think of her name, Carrie Hadley, and said Richland would be open, so we would try to, you know, work with them as well. But really, that's why it's so important that this survey data to try to figure out what needs our kids would need.
Pay the cooks for that 5th day.
Yep.
Do that. That's not really, technically, it couldn't come out of our budget.
Well, that's what, and that's something we need to check on too, truthfully. Like if we do go to let's say we have Fridays off, right? And we do go to that, can we count that as from our nutrition fund? I don't know. I really don't know that, Natalie, and that's something I know Ann's going to check on. That's a great question though. So that's something we do want to figure out, because we can count it and deliver meals. Like when we had the COVID, when we had the COVID money and things, and we could count those meals. Is it similar to that? We really don't know. And so those are questions that I still have as well. Good question. This one's about studies showing improved scores. This is something where, thinking of our two neighboring schools, Cardinal has not seen growth, Waco kind of has. The reason we would go to a 4-day week is not necessarily, there's not a lot of research out there on 4-day weeks, truthfully. And so that's something where just depending on, again, I think it goes back to our quality staff and making sure they have the time that they're prepared for to see whether or not this is a right move or not. So, yeah.
So the research and development, the RAM studies that are done, there's states that in the 8 states that have done the 4-day school week, they have proven that there is slow improvement, but it takes 8 years for your students to catch up to where they would be if you would have stayed at a 5-day school week. Our kids are over in school for 13 years. We barely prepare our students for college right now. How are we going to play that waiting game to see how our classrooms and our curriculum are going to fulfill our students so that they are, productive and able to succeed in college?
Sure. So my thoughts are, I could show you data the other way too. There's tons of, I'm not a huge, RAND, I don't know a ton about that study. Personally, I haven't looked into that a lot. We have some local data that shows otherwise for schools, so I think depending on what we want, I could find data that shows what you want. So, okay, can I finish these and then when we open it up? Okay. So, improving teacher retention. Again, we start teachers off at a high salary. We lock them in. So we're I think, and Matt, if I say this wrong, we're probably top 5 in the state how we start teachers, and we're bottom 5 in the state for teacher salary and longevity. And so there is a bill out there. I just met with Governor Reynolds on Monday, and she is still pushing. She's pushing for $50,000 to start, and then BA or 12 years at 62. I did ask her what's the plan to then fill in, because if you're a master's plus 24 here, which is our highest lane, at 12 years you're making about 63.5. So what's the plan to fill that gap? And she didn't answer my question because there's not necessarily a plan yet. So that would really change the teacher salary thing. So we we would have to figure out how to stay competitive with that, and I don't have an answer to that, and the governor doesn't have an answer either if we were to go to that. If we don't, we're still, we do try to recruit people and try to get them on the higher beginning salary, but what we found is other schools can offer, if you are 8, 10 years, 12 years, other schools can offer a lot more salary with that. So that's something where, a 4-day week, if I can work 4 days and then have 2 days of professional development and have 2 days off, that might be more appealing than what we're finding, what the new studies coming from the universities are, is that students don't necessarily care as much about the money as the flexibility and time. And so whether that's right or wrong, that's what's coming out, that's what we're hearing. So that's why we'd be, another reason that you could possibly look at a 4-day week is that does allow a little more flexibility for some of our students just graduating college. I know Ann and I had talked about this a lot. 20, 30 years ago, we'd have 30, for a 3rd grade position, we'd have 100 applicants. If we get 3, I'm pretty tickled, and usually those are people that I've called or that Mrs. Bell's reached out to. So anything that what we're looking at possibly is this a way where we can get people to come to the middle of the corner, Beanfield? Because it is challenging to recruit people. I think, how many teachers did we hire last year? 8 or 9, and I think we made personal phone calls to about everyone we ended up hiring besides maybe a couple. And so that's something where we want to make sure that we stay aggressive in trying to recruit and keep our teachers here.
When you're searching for retaining your staff, have you done surveys to find out why you're not able to retain them? Because your salaries are some of the highest in surrounding communities.
So our beginning salaries are, but once you stay for 5 or 6 years, they tank comparative to other schools. We have not yet, no. So this one is, how do we promise reduction in instructional time does not reduce our student achievement when we already report the lowest in math reading scores in our surrounding schools relative to our size? Can you show that, Sean? If I refresh this. Yeah, can you put that on a slide here? I just want to show, I'm not sure where that data came from. We do not have some of the lowest scores. So I'm gonna go ahead and show that, and I know Mrs. Bell can put a little pressure on them, so I'm gonna see if they can find that for the other question. So while they're doing that, what are the preschool plans with the 4-day week? This did come up with the staff. I'll be honest, I don't have a great answer for that. We're gonna look at our numbers and see. Currently, we have 3 sections, correct, Gina? And some go on a Friday, some go on a Monday. So, right or wrong, that would put, if we stayed with that would put Gina at a little bit of disadvantage, where she would have to come in if that's the way we were to stay. So that's something, again, depending on numbers, I would want to work with her, work with Ashley, and try to figure out what's our best solution. I came from a school where we did Monday through Thursday, AM, PM. I don't know if that would allow our numbers or not. It's really going to depend on numbers. So I would want to sit down really with her. I wouldn't want to make any promises on preschool. I don't know if this was your question or not, Gina. I tend to be looking at you, but that would be something where we would want to figure that out. Whether that is extra compensation for her and the staff, whether that's I know we offer some busing. We would want to make sure that if we did the 3 days, those would not be the students that we would need busing. So I'm not going to sit here and there's still a lot of questions on preschool that I don't have a great answer to yet. It would be depending on those numbers, really. So this next question is about, do teachers want more PD time? Can you refresh that for me? I think Mr. Dorman answered that. What we hear a lot from our teachers is they need more time. And when we say professional development, that doesn't mean necessarily they're sitting and getting all the time. That means they're working in a team, doing the planning, looking at data. And so If I didn't answer that, feel free to ask again. But I do thank our teachers. You know, that's some feedback we did get last year is, you know, more time for that. Transportation for middle school sports on non-school days. If we find that as a need for transportation, we will find a way and make sure that happens. Okay, so if you look up here, this was, actually, do you guys, I feel like I've talked a lot. I'll let you guys explain it.
So this first slide up here is shared with staff. We shared it back every year. The state puts out what's called the school performance profile, or state report card as it's known as well. Basically where our school stacks up in different categories. So on the left-hand side, you see how weighting goes into the state, more so into certain categories. For example, this year, the state's heaviest area of target was in growth. So the growth factored into your composite score better than anything else. The state was wanting to see where kids not only were at proficiency-wise, but where they were growing at. So in the secondary, it looks a little different than the elementary. On the whole, it's the same. They look at composite conditions for learning. Conditions for learning is a survey students do, basically to say, how do you feel when you're at school? How do you feel in the locker room? How do you feel in the lunchroom? Do you have interactions with positive interactions with peers? Anything like that goes into where students score conditions for learning. Staff also take that, but that's not factored into the state's school profile. So we have that data, but that's not factored into the big composite state score. Then you go to math proficiency, how many students were proficient or above benchmark in math, math growth, how many showed at least a year's worth of growth, the state average is at the 50, and then ELA proficient, ELA growth as well. Secondary specifically has what's called that post-secondary readiness, which is where they track graduates for 5 years, essentially saying where did they say they were going to go as far as a 2-year, 4-year workplace, military, whatever it is, and then track did they kind of stick in with that as well. So on the far left-hand column, you can see, again, where Pekin kind of stacked up. We stacked it in against other conference. We just compiled, actually, I had our instructional coaches pull and compile all this data. You guys can get on Iowa School Performance Profile, search any school. You can go back 5 years and see what Pekin has done, growth, decline, whatever it is. But then this one, so this was just stacked up to our conference or others, or sorry, local districts around us. So numbers, I guess, I can explain whatever, yeah.
Can I just clarify something?
Absolutely.
Just for people who may not understand, I mean, I wouldn't, just if I want a teacher, but.
No, you're fine.
Growth, I mean, just because we have a low score in growth doesn't mean we have low scores. I just-
Correct. Yeah, proficiency and growth are two different categories.
At the end, you have to have a year's growth.
Correct.
That's hard to get.
Correct. So,
And the same with, I mean, but anyway. I just-
yeah, and yeah, there are very different things to your point, absolutely. Proficiency is the benchmark. State says you need to be, or you're suggested to be at this grade level, this point, this score, whatever it is, and so we score accordingly. Growth is absolutely, as Michelle was talking about, where they're targeting, and again, the state, on their accord, not on ours, decided, hey, growth is what we want to focus on more than anything else. If our kids are above proficiency, we'll want to continue them to grow. If they're below, we want to still see they may not reach proficiency, but did they still grow? That's what the state chose to target. So again, thank you, Michelle. That's great clarification. Those are two different things,
I
absolutely.
wish we would look at proficiency, but.
Yeah, and again, how the state chooses to weight things is differently. I don't know. That's not my control. Sorry.
And so when it's growth too, and correct me if I'm wrong, when it is growth, you are compared to other students in that level. So if you are a student who scored in the 50th percentile and you grew 2 years, well, other kids might have been in the 50th percentile and they scored 3 years higher. So that means your growth is not as good as those students. So it's actually pretty comparative, or it's pretty accurate how they can do that comparison. So it's not just like, well, we're looking at a year's growth. That used to be, the old ITBS scores where you were at the 4th grade, 2nd month, so you scored 4.2. Not necessarily like that. And they compare to all other kids who took the test and how you did. So you might have grown a year, but if everybody else where you scored grew 2 years, you're going to have very low growth. And so, ironically, Michelle, we got a message from the state that they are going to switch this and probably look more proficient now. Not asking any superintendents their thoughts. The Department of Ed just decided that, and that was a fun meeting to be at. But it's going to come out a lot different. But that's a whole nother issue. So that was high school. Let Mrs. Bell talk about elementary.
Yeah, I feel feel like we kind of explained it all now, but as you can see, our proficiency is above the average, but our growth was not, and so we do have some reds in there. I don't know if you want to compare over to Cardinal, where they have a lot of green over there in their 4-day. You know, lots of factors, so you can't just really take that, but we have room to grow, and we'll keep doing that, whether it's a 4-day or normal, so.
Sorry, no, that was on me. I just wanted to show that data quick. This is something we did share with our School Improvement Advisory Committee. It is required by our, there's a report in this CASA that we have to meet with SIAC and talk about our data, and then the growth or lack of growth, lack of proficiency or proficiency and things like that, and just talk about those. So that was that is currently on the slideshow again. We will share that on the website. So with that being said, I think those were all the questions that came in. Mrs. Bell kind of walk around with the microphone. I know if we get really quiet, we can hear, but Mrs. Bell or Mr. Dorman. So if you have a question, again, I'd prefer not to be here all night, but again, I want to make sure that questions are answered. So Melissa over here has a question. Just beware, Mrs. Bell, the next question is going to come from Claire over here.
Get my steps in.
You're like, man,
Okay, my first question should be fairly easy. What kind of schedule? So if we do switch to 4-day and we're doing 8 o'clock to 3:45, will we do the 8 periods or we do block scheduling? What will that be?
So I just got out of BLT. There's a couple, I don't know if they're still here or not. There's a couple up there. Thank you. A couple BLT meetings, and we were having those conversations. SIAC recommendation to board was also to pursue an 8-period day. Only been here 2 years. That was something I heard when I first came in. Heard that kind of as a resounding. We want more opportunities for kids. So trying to find that balance, absolutely, of how do we make sure we're having kids in classes, because we don't want 8 periods and then a whole bunch more in study hall as well. We want kids in seats, and so we're all committed to that. BLT feels like we have a strong recommendation, whether we go with a 4-day, whether we stay with a 5-day, to go to an 8-period day. So we are looking at that regardless of the outcome.
Great. One concern that I have, my daughter's in high school just as a freshman, and Sherry has really long days. You know, they have a morning practice, they come in at 6:30, and then she's at school throughout the day, and you know, then she has schoolwork, and you know, everyone knows what I'm talking about. So I'm a little bit concerned about making the day longer. Like, what would a morning practice, would it start at 6 a.m. then? And what, I'm just wondering about the really long days it's gonna put our kids through. But you know, softball, my daughter plays softball, and sometimes she doesn't get home till 10 o'clock at night from the games because they're so far away. So I'm just wondering what thoughts about that? You know, like, so what would our morning practices be? Is there is it gonna be a change in any game schedules? Like, I'm concerned about adding to a day that's already long for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we want to take very seriously too. I don't have a great answer as far as like, hey, this is what time practice is going to start and this is what time it's going to get done. That's a coaching conversation that I know Clint and I have already had as AD about what does that look like, because we want to be aware of that as well. We don't want to just assume, hey, we're just going to add another 30 minutes for school, which means another 30 minutes in the morning or the afternoon. There's absolutely conversations that have to happen for coaches, because we have kids that not only are just in the one practice, but then may have a sport before school, may have, you know, what practice after school as well. So we are cognizant of those. I know it's kind of skirting around an answer. I don't have one for you at this moment, what that looks like. Just know we have been having those conversations too. It's a great point. To the earlier question about a block as well, we have floated that idea around as BLT. We're non-committal, obviously, on what that actually looks like yet. There's pros and cons to it, just like going to the 8 period. One of my concerns is, you know, it's 8 transitions, 9 including dens throughout a day, which is a lot of transitions for kids too. So we're still working on that. BLT is meeting usually we meet once a month, bi-weekly. For BLT, we're meeting every week as we get going in here. And so a special thanks to them for being willing to put in that extra time, but we're really trying to have answers for that. So regardless if we go with a 4-day week or we stay with a 5-day, we have answers either way come that March board meeting, because we want to be prepared and ready to move.
Okay, I have a million questions, so cut me off when you're sick of me. Derek, you said September of 2022 was when the board brought this to you. Why are we not hearing about it until February of '24 with public surveys and meetings? And according to the last board meeting, it seems like we want a March decision for next school year.
Yeah, we will take a recommendation, or we'll take a calendar to March. So the reason is I didn't look at it much last year, trying to learn the superintendent role. And this year we did meet with SIAC, which is a committee that I take pretty serious, their recommendations, and we didn't meet until December. So I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's the answer.
It just seems extremely rushed with lots of unanswered questions. So far tonight, I've heard a lot of we're not sure, just pointing that out. How does this address declining enrollment?
So some of the schools have increased, both the schools that will be here have increased enrollment. Whether that's a 4-day week, whether that's not, they've increased enrollment and they're on a 4-day week.
I assume you're talking about open enrollment. So for the
Correct.
past 10 years, 10 years ago, Pekin was at 66 open enrolling in 17 open enrolling out. Today, we're at 61 out, 119 in. So we've gone from 66 coming in to 119 coming in 10 years. So our true numbers are coming up because numbers in the district, living in the district, are going down, but our open enrollment numbers are going up.
Correct.
So is that what's going on with other communities as well?
What did you say? Sorry, I don't have a mic. What was the open enrollment out numbers before and now?
It was, 10 years ago, it was 17 out,
17
and
out.
today it's 61.9.
61. Okay.
How would this create a more consistent schedule?
So our goal would be if we didn't have school on Fridays or we didn't have school on Mondays, it would be consistent every other Friday, every other Monday, and that's when we would not have school. That's when we would have teacher professional development on every other one of those instead of 1 day a month. Sometimes we did it on a Tuesday, professional development. Instead of the Monday, we would try to eliminate that and keep it as consistent as possible.
So you're making PD days more consistent, not student schedules more consistent.
Students would be consistent on either Tuesday through Friday or Monday through Thursday.
Okay. And lower elementary, we are asked as K through 2 teacher or parents to send snacks every day because lunch is so early they can't make it till the end of the day. So what are you going to do with lunch if we're starting 15 minutes sooner and we're ending 15 minutes later? How are we addressing those? We can't make it through a day without snacks for these younger students.
That's something we actually talked about to see if there was a grant or whether we could charge our nutrition funds for that and buy goldfish or I know when I was in school we had a safe, healthy snack grant that I don't know if it's still around or not, but that's something that Ann and I actually just talked about to try to look into as well.
And have you sat down with teachers with concerns, or have you only done the survey? Do the teachers want more PD hours, or do they want more hours where they can actually work and grade and do things that they need to do for their classrooms?
So I can speak to the secondary. Again, BLTs both have been tasked with having those conversations as well. I can speak to mine. Specifically the secondary, I can let Jenny speak to hers at the elementary. But both have asked for both. I mean, honestly, as they've gone, is they want more time in that day to professionally develop because we have the one a month. It usually ends up being jam-packed with 6, 8, 4 activity, whatever it ends up being for there, and it's difficult to make progress on that professional growth because we only have the 1 day a month as we're going. So building in that extra time would absolutely give them the capacity to have more professional development, but then also serve that other need that they need that additional time too.
Yeah, and I'd say most of the elementary is the same. They want more time. They want more time for both. I know our PD, we are jam-packed, like they're busy and we're going from one thing to the next and it's sometimes overwhelming and they don't have time to soak all that in. And so to me, the biggest pro to do this is PD, and we're looking at bringing associates in, so associates and teachers have time to work together, to plan, to help them, work better with our students. So in all, I think that is one huge thing. Going back to the snack, I know the kids don't usually eat their snack until the very end of the day, so if they're getting a snack now, it wouldn't be any different, I guess, because it's only like 15 more minutes at the end of the day, so it would be kind of the same.
I have a general question. Do you think that with Waco and Cardinal representatives coming in, that we could maybe forward some requests for information so that they're prepared?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Like, I don't know if you can survey or if they have information on, has it helped fill their teacher vacancies? Has it helped with their open enrollment numbers? You kind of showed the test scores, but because I think that if you were trying to make this a sales pitch, we should lead with it being beneficial to our students, not necessarily just teachers. But that's just a comment.
I'm trying to think the best way to gather that without, like, I don't want to say, hey, just email Ann Swanson. So let me think on whether we need to create another survey, whether we create somewhere where you can ask those questions. I know both the people coming really well. They'd be more than happy to have that. I think it's a great idea to get them prepared. I'm not sure right now, off the top of my head, on what would be the best way to get your questions without bombarding someone's email inbox. But I think that's a great idea, Sonia. Thank you for that.
I don't think anyone's trying to do a sales pitch. I think it's more, this is something that other communities are doing. Should Pekin do it, or should Pekin not do it? I really don't feel like anybody is trying to pitch this beyond, is it right for us, or is it not right for us?
I'm wondering, has there been talk about a survey that would target just 6 and younger? Because I feel like the data and numbers that we have right now are kind of skewed towards our older students and teachers and parents that are involved and they have an opinion and they want to do what's best for their children. We're responding. But what about those parents that aren't involved? What about those children that don't have that great home? I really want to know that we have the right numbers and we're really benefiting the children that are COVID even. I mean, we don't know how it's all going to end up, but if we now throw a 4-day week at some of these younger kids, we could really be hurting them. So maybe more survey comes up.
Yeah, and we honestly know we have not talked about really our elementary students with that. I think that's something we can talk about, but to tell you the truth, no, we haven't, because when we sent this out, we kind of pushed it out to our high school kids. We had that dense. No, we haven't, but I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know on one survey you did ask, like, in your home, how many, the ages of your children, and do you have an older child to care for your younger children? Of those responses, maybe the data could show, like, it's 20% of them that have, the older kids to take care of the younger ones. Like, what is the population of our community? I mean, is there a greater need for making sure that these young kids are being cared for and, are going to be taken care of, rather than what's doing best for the teachers and the older students?
So it's a fact that we live in a low socioeconomic community. The amount of children in our school that are special education, IEPs, is exponential. I've worked in a few different schools up in the Cedar Rapids area, Lisbon and Mount Vernon, in special education. They have 2-3 special education teachers for K through 12. They have 1 Title I reader teacher. There are a small handful of students that need those extra help, those paras, the support. When I came back to Pekin, I graduated from here, I was ecstatic I've seen the struggle that the kids already have on a 5-day school week. The amount of absences that you have in your special education kids, whether that's due to appointments, due to mom and dad, they refuse to go to school, whatever their reason be. You had a lot of absences in that department with those kids. You're now taking one more day away from them to be in the classroom, to give them the opportunity and the tools and the support to have a successful life. Now, not everyone in our special education group is going to go to college. They may work, doing whatever. But it's doing a disservice to our students by reducing our instructional time. It's doing a disservice to our community that you want to follow the lead with the rest of the schools because everyone else is doing it.
Okay, I just want to clarify, I'm gathering information. I'm not wanting to follow the lead or anything,
I know,
so.
this is just my opinion.
Okay,
That's what this board
but
is about.
but you said that you want to follow the lead, so I guess I took that
You
one.
can say that that's what they're doing.
That is a reason, they are, but again, we're gathering information, so. Go ahead.
I just want you to think more about how this is going to affect your students than your staff. Because when did it switch from being what's best for the teachers, or what's best for the students, to what's best for the teachers?
I want to say before we clap to that not all teachers want a 4-day week. And so, like, to say it's only for the teachers, not everybody is for it.
Yeah, and I would chime in there too that, we have this conversation about what's best for teachers, what's best for kids. What's best for kids is absolutely having high quality instructors in the building. And, I can speak to personally just since, and I've only been here 2 years, we've had open math positions for that entirety of time. I would love to be able to recruit and retain anybody possible to be able to come Pekin by whatever means that may be. And if that means a conversation about a 4-day, and again, it's not my pitch or any of this whatsoever, that's absolutely doing what's best for kids as well. I just want to be very clear. Supporting staff is what's best for kids because a very high-powered staff is going to have the greatest effect on kids every day in day-to-day classes. You're absolutely right. Yep, nothing in life is guaranteed as we go, and that's where, I'm just showing this is what data has. I don't know. I've had conversations with Mr. Bartels at Waco just because he's been a mentor of mine as well, and I asked these questions. And so I'm glad he's hopefully going to be able to be in attendance next week, be able to share some of that data with you as well. Is it a guarantee? No, absolutely not. And I'm not up here to try to sell anything at all. I'm just saying, I just want to clear that when we talk about what's best for kids, having high quality staff that interact with kids every single class period is absolutely what's best for kids.
I guess some of mine got answered there, but you say you got more time with your family. I work 5-6 days a week, so how does that benefit me to spend more time with my kid? And when they should be here, still learning. Going to 4 days, I manage 13 people. How am I going to do that? My kid's going into workforce and saying, I don't need to work 4 days. They're not going to be around here. So how are you going to keep, if everybody else does it 4 days, what's worth the drive then? If you're following suit, what makes it worth the drive to come here? If you have the higher quality people, or maybe you're asking them, if we were 4 days, would you come here? Are you getting any feedback there?
We did have, and I did not put that up there. We were asking, I believe the question was something to the effect of, would you consider leaving, for another district like Kyoto or somewhere if they end up going to it? It was fairly mixed right now. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. With the, I'm trying to think of your first part of your question. I think you would kind of ask, is it preparing kids to work, in the workforce? Is that fair enough? Fair enough. If you go to Indian Hills, it is 4-day week. Some people don't get to, it's 7 days and in, 16 hours, so are we gonna look at having our kids come Saturday, Sunday too? So, I mean, that's the other side too, and I don't have a great answer necessarily. I think that I do agree with Mr. Dorman. If there's a way where we could retain people and say, hey, you can work 4 days here, or you can go work 5 days here, and that gives them more, your original question was family time. Yeah, that's not, to me, that's something we put on there because other people have said that. That's not a reason necessarily that I feel we're looking at it, because we do have people that do work 5 days a week. That's not one of the main reasons in my opinion. But that is something that had come up in other surveys, so we did leave that on there, just to see if that's something that people felt strongly about or not. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, so we heard from your guys' point of view, but the board votes on this ultimately, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are all board members present here tonight?
I believe 3 are.
Okay. To me, that's a problem. If they're going to be the voice of the community, they need to be here hearing our input. I respect your guys' opinion. I disagree, but I respect your opinion on the 4-day. But they need to be here to hear the community side of it. And there's a reason, there should be a reason they should be here.
There's a reason.
We can't all be here.
Yeah, why?
Because otherwise we're gonna call it a public. We have to call it. Which we are having a public hearing. As the board on March 11th, where everybody can come and talk to the board. And that's a time where everybody can talk to the board and tell us their opinion, the final opinion, after the board takes place.
I'm not sure if everybody heard. Did everybody hear that?
Nope.
No? Okay. So it gets very, I'll give a really long-winded answer. It gets very tricky if you have more than, since we're a 7-member board, if you have more than 4 in one place, and there's any risk of like school talk, and now you're having what's called an illegal meeting because you have a quorum. So if we posted this as like a meeting, we kind of have to follow meeting rules and things, and that was not the goal. This was just for us to try to gather more information, try to answer questions, whatever that may be. So what JJ said was on March 11th, that's the regular board meeting. Right before that, on February 12th, the board voted to have, like right before a regular meeting, hearing on the calendar. That's something we have to do every year. So that's where you would come and you could talk. You would get 3 minutes. You could talk and share your opinion before the board closes that meeting and then goes into regular session and votes. If that makes sense.
Can we clarify? I'm not understanding. I feel like we're getting 2 different answers. So that guy.
We have a 7-person board.
I know.
We can only have 3 here.
I'm not sure because you guys can go to a case together. Can I ask my question and we'll do the answer? Okay. So we have a 7-member board.
Correct, 7-member board.
Okay, so in February, we had a board meeting. I know I went to it expecting, which you don't get time to talk, but, so the board calls a meeting for 7 people, and calls it a board meeting and does the agenda and all that. The board stated at that meeting, we're gonna hold a public forum so that people can ask and answer questions. I'm hearing 2 different answers right now on why the board members, because I thought the gentleman who asked that question was a beautiful question, because the people who are gonna make a decision can't bother to be here, but they're gonna hide behind, it feels like it's a little bit of a, what's it called, smoke screen, well, then if all 7 are here, we need quorum. Well, this is not a board meeting, and it's never been advertised as such, so the excuse to not have all 7 here, a little bogus feeling, because, so the gentleman who said that about the board, and then someone says we can't all be here, well, we're here to discuss the schedule of our lives and our kids. If 7 people can't bother to be here for 2 meetings, then why are we asking all of us to rearrange our entire lives? So let's just be clear on what's actually happening. We have don't start talking yet. We have 4 people who haven't come apparently. So let's not be hypocritical to expect us to make all these changes and go on board, unintended, and then kind of deflect the question that gentleman down there asked.
Well, I'll answer a couple of those questions. First of all, if I called the meeting to order tonight in front of the whole community, I would would have to put it under public comment, and no one would get longer than 3 minutes to speak. At our public hearing, you can have as long as you want. I know Derek said 3 minutes, but I've been informed that you can have as long as you want, but we do have businesses to attend, and I guess the board members are here tonight. We're kind of splitting up. There's other board members that want to be here, but I would have to limit you guys' time. I would have to, because it's our board policy.
And let me clarify that real quick, and I'm not like,
Yep.
I respect you, but because it would be like you guys attending,
It's no different than being at a basketball
ball
game
game
together.
or anything, as long as you're not,
But-
as long as you're not together making moves and.
This is a decision that we were gonna be making, and we can't be here discussing school businesses, like Derek said. We can't discuss school business.
Not true. Do you have students that go to this school?
Huh?
Do you have students that go to this school?
Yes, I do.
Do all the board members have students who go to this school?
Yeah.
7? So you could attend as parents, not necessarily just as school board members?
What's that?
So you could attend as parents, not just school board members, correct?
Honestly, it gets pretty tricky. I have one board member that, it does, it just because of the open meeting, that like, we're having a meeting, so if we have a quorum, you could turn us into the state and we would be investigated.
Did you swear us in though as a crowd?
With that,
Did you swear us in as a crowd for a board meeting?
if, we,
Did you?
no.
No. So this is a public forum, not an agenda item?
Yeah, this is a public forum.
Right. So for you to say that if all 7 of you were in one space, then it would be considered a meeting, but you didn't swear us in. We're not having discussions where you're gonna make any decisions. Please do not deflect what's actually happening.
So I do want to, and Melissa, I respect your opinion, I respect it. I do want to keep this, it's about 7:08, I want to respect your time. My goal was about 7:15, I kind of had in my head, so if there are other questions, let's try to stick specifically, around the 4-day week. I'd love to, again, we got a few more minutes before, 5-6 more minutes, so if somebody has any questions, I know you've got the mic. Go ahead, Sean.
I just got two things. Mrs. Pfeiffer made a great point. Some of the numbers you guys put up there had anywhere from 100 to 172 people that responded to the survey. You said we've got 600 to 700 students, correct?
Correct, about 580, 600, yeah.
Let's just say 600. If there's 600, let's say every student does have 2 parents, that's as many as possibly 1,200 people that could respond to your survey. If we put all of your eggs into the 61% of the people said this is a great idea, but only 170 people answered your stuff, there could be 800 to 900 people sitting at home that don't have the internet, don't have the time, that could be sitting there going, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen or heard of. And if we go, to her point, perception is reality. I'm not saying that you are, but just sitting here, it does seem like this is a total sales pitch. Now I know you're just giving us information, but it does, just perception is this is a sales pitch that you guys think this is the greatest thing and that we should totally do this. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's what it seems like sitting here. So if there's 80% of this community that hasn't voiced their opinion, technically they're missing out. That's their own fault for not being here. We've got a handful of parents, and you got 1,000 of them sitting at home that aren't here. They should be here. If they care about their kids, everybody should be here voicing their opinion. So you guys can get literal, general good numbers and not 20% of the community giving you 60% positive numbers. That's realistically not, I'm a math major, and don't approach me about teaching because that's not gonna happen. But that's really not good numbers, especially to stack and say, hey, this is where we need to go based on 100 people out of 172 said, great idea. Not to mention the younger families, that's great points. The last thing on one of your things, you said students were saying that they would love to have that extra day off for getting a part-time job. Really? I don't think there's anybody here that thinks there's high school kids that are out there actively looking for part-time jobs. I mean, Johnny, me, anybody here could be offering $40 an hour to a high school kid to come help me bale little square bales of straw, and they ain't gonna show up. They'll show up for an hour and go, Mom's calling, I gotta go home, you know?
No, and I think it makes great
I think what's
points.
gonna happen is you got Hedrick, you got Richland, you got all these little towns, and you got 40 hoodlums sitting at home going, we got the whole day off and mom and dad are at work. What can we do to have some fun? I think you're gonna see a lot of bad stuff happen in all these little communities, whether it's Friday, whether it's Monday. And of course, also being a football coach, I know the one thing in the world that all coaches hate is not having any control over your kids. And I've coached against Waco. I've talked to some of the Waco coaches. Yes, people at Waco do love this. The Waco football coaches don't. They come and find out they got kids at home playing basketball for 3 hours and then try to play a football game later that night. That's not good. Stone would have never put up with that. Not in a million years.
No, and I encourage you to, put, I don't know if you have filled out the survey yet, but if you haven't, I encourage you to put those. Those are great points. Right. And then Tracy.
Is there an actual vote? Will the board vote?
So will the board,
Like, is this 100% going to a board vote next month?
yes.
Alright.
So the board will ask at the February meeting for 2 calendars. One is a traditional, kind of what we're doing now, calendar, which as a committee, we're gonna meet tomorrow. And they will create a normal, pretty typical calendar. I call it the traditional calendar. And then a 4-day, we're probably gonna look at 2 different calendars, whether it's a Monday or Friday, 4-day, and then we would take that to the board for a March vote.
That are adults, and we're gonna go buy something, or you're gonna build a house, or you're gonna plan a trip, you're gonna do all of your research. You're not gonna make snack decisions, you're not gonna try and push this through to whatever. Is it pertinent that you push this to the board for March? Like, you have so many questions from your community, your teachers, your parents, the kids, that you guys don't have answers to, or we're working on that, or we're looking into that. How are people supposed to make an informed decision? How are our board members supposed to make an informed decision when you don't have the answers that we need to make those decisions? Because this is our tax dollars that are paying to suffice for the one day that everyone's not going to be working. They're still gonna get paid. So it affects everybody, whether we have kids or not in this community. And everyone can have a voice about it. So rushing it and saying, we're gonna do, sorry, but how about we take a year and we actually do research to find out all the answers to these questions that we have?
Have you filled out the survey yet, Joe? I mean, put that on the feedback. The board can table it.
Those were my questions that you started out reading.
Mhm.
I have so many points, I have so many questions and concerns for it. And people can easily say, Joe, you only have 1 kid left in school, you shouldn't be a senior. Why do you care? I hope that my kids have their kids and that they can graduate from Pekin, but I think this is the first step in the wrong direction for Pekin. To just, we're gonna try to do it. We're gonna, I mean, why? I don't feel like you're fully informed with all of the data, all of the answers, all of the questions that we have. 2 public forums is not enough to satisfy the community, to make them say, hey, Sean had a very good point. If we have 1,200 parents out there and only 100, whatever it says, 6,770 have answered, why are we going off that 1% compared to all of the rest of the people who have a voice for it?
So I think I would ask, how do we get that feedback? More than happy to listen to, more than happy, okay. Appreciate the feedback.
I
Go ahead, Tracy.
I would have to say that a week ago, when you had conferences, would have been the ideal time to have those parents, you had your parent there.
Okay.
Fill out this surveys. I don't know how much.
I'm gonna ask, since we're talking about conferences, so I have a 3rd grader and I have a 2-year-old, and we open enroll to Beacon. So we choose to come here. I cannot say that we would choose to come here if it's a 4-day week, so we are a farm family. It makes sense. Why wouldn't we want to open enroll to a 4-day week? We'd only have to drive 4 days instead of 5. It is absolutely not real world. So if we're talking about trying to retain teachers, this is a rural problem. So do those teachers want to work 4 days at Pekin, or do they want to come to Pekin and get their couple years in and then go to a bigger district in a bigger area? That's where the teachers are going. The teachers aren't leaving Pekin to go to Cardinal in droves. You might lose 1 or 2. You might lose 1 or 2 to Waco, but you're not losing your teachers. My guess, I haven't actually researched it, my guess is you're not losing teachers to other small rural schools because they're 4 days a week for the majority of why the teachers are leaving. Second of all, when we look at those numbers, I am horrified because only one said that their child, they were concerned about their food.
Food insecurity.
Yes,
Yep.
okay, so can we just do a quick survey with the elementary teachers of who comes to parent-teacher conferences? Who comes? Is it the students who are food insecure? Is it the students who are really struggling? Is it the students who their parents really care? Or is it the parents who...
As a foster parent, I will say no, and that's the whole problem. We can't have...
We are not serving the kids who are in most need by this survey, because the kids who are in most need, I will say, I took the survey, of course I did. I open enroll. I care about my kids' education. But the people who are not responding are the ones who are food insecure, the ones who are gonna have kids home during the day, unsupervised, the ones who are gonna be most disadvantaged by not having the structure, not having the meals, not having the security that the school provides. Those kids, I shouldn't have to explain to you guys the problems that the elementary kids face at home, and I'm sure the high schoolers do too.
They do.
So why are we forcing them into their homes 1 more day a week where they're scared, they don't have food, they get no instruction from their parents. There's no structure. Maybe the parents aren't even there. Maybe, so how can us like nice little 2-parent homes with higher incomes say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I just feel like you're absolutely ignoring those parents, or those, not even the parents, because the parents could take the survey, they could figure it out. But it's those parents who aren't concerned, who don't care, who don't come to parent-teacher conferences, who are not taking this survey, and who are not reading with their kids at home, and who are not doing their homework, and who are not feeding their kids, or not bathing their kids. Those are the kids who are gonna suffer even further, and their parents aren't here, and their parents aren't taking the surveys.
I agree with that, and maybe we should go to a 4-day week, but that decision should probably be made with them. Because the data, like I said, as a foster parent, the data of saying that 106 out of 107 kids in this school are food secure, I think that's a very, very poor set of data. Anybody?
Just look at our free and reduced lunch
I would
rate.
say that's a very poor set of data. and I don't have it.
Absolutely.
Very quick. Maybe it is 4 days a week. I'm not
Look at that.
arguing that.
It's huge. It's huge, right? Yeah.
What is our free and reduced lunch portion?
I'm not 100% sure percentage.
Is it over 50?
No. I want to say, this is more of an and. I just looked up this data last night. I can't remember. I think it's between,
36.
I was going to say between 35 and 40, I
This
believe.
is bad
So.
data. This is bad data. This is not our community.
Well, again, I want to be clear, so I don't know if I can find, like, we're simply presenting that this is where we're at right now. Again,
But this is what the board
But
is
we're
seeing.
voting on it.
The
We're
board
voting on it
needs
in
to
March,
know.
right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's where, again, part of this.
You're not just presenting it, you're gonna vote on it.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
know.
just an idea.
No, I don't, and that's absolutely why I think this critical board is here, absolutely to your point, and that we're just trying to show you where we're at. Is that everybody? You're absolutely right, no, not at all. Are we gonna get 100% participation? No, not at all. And, our hope is board hears from you guys, able to make the most informed decision possible. We're simply trying to present what we can out here out of it. I understand it. And it seems like it's a pitch.
So
and
can we
that-
present the other side to the board?
What?
Like, do we get to present, like, what about the students who aren't represented?
So what do we need to do to tell the board this cannot go to vote in 3 weeks? Like, we need what?
Yeah.
Do we need a survey for that?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
the surveys don't work. You cannot do a survey because you're not getting, it's very skewed, absolutely.
Josie, what's your question? You got the mic.
So, I'm not currently teaching the high school level, but I know when I did, most teachers know that your most productive periods are in the morning. By 8th hour, you're hoping to do as good a job, kids aren't as focused. Now we're adding a half hour at the end of the day, which, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, we had to do that to make up some snow days. It was a very long 9, 10 weeks. You know, we're talking about doing this all year now. And I'm just concerned that, yeah, we may have the hours, but are they going to be as productive as what we're getting now? So I think that's something to consider.
No, fair point. I appreciate that. We'll take Lorna's question and then Dana, do you still have a question? Okay. Families, I'm not 100% sure. Right, and I have 3 as well, so sure. Ann can go look real fast. Not real fast, but I mean she's don't run Ann. So she can go look. I'm not. Yeah, no, that's a great question because we wouldn't expect, maybe you only fill it out for once instead of 600 times. I don't know. Ann will answer that, and then did we have one more question over here? And then so Lorna, Ann will get the data, and we'll finish over here.
My question is, how many teachers have left Pekin to go to a school that has a 4-day work week? I can't think of any.
I honestly have no idea.
And I've been here 34 years.
So that's a terrible
I
answer.
can't
We
think of
don't
anybody.
know, but that's what we're trying to say. We don't know how many have left, but that's the big sell of keeping teachers, but you don't know how many have left to go to a 4-day
I honestly don't know.
Okay,
No.
so,
We're probably looking at, I think there were 5 last year, and I know there's been at least 5 or 6, so I think you're going to be at around maybe 15, 20 this coming school year. No, there some bigger, some smaller. Sean asked how many schools are 4-day week right now. I believe it was 5 this year, and then with the new ones, I think you're going to be around maybe 10, 15 is my guess. Size-wise, the biggest looking at it that I know is probably Keokuk right now. The smallest is probably Moulton Udell right now. 402 families. Okay. So I think I think that's going to be a great question to see schools that have done it. So when we figure out a way, like I said, I'm not sure whether that's going to be a Q&A on the website or whatever, but I think that's a great question to ask the schools that have done that, Cardinal and Waco, to see like how does that work with them. So sure. It can be a little challenge. All right, we'll go with 2 more. Go ahead, Jordan. Correct. So the Cardinal superintendent and possibly high school principal, and then the Waco high school principal. Davis County, I honestly, I don't know. If I can check some schools, yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's a little shorter, trying to get them up here, but if I can find somebody who did vote no, absolutely, I think that's fair. Which, Natalie?
As a community member, not a staff, how is going to 4 days a week going to save our school money? If we're going to continue to pay your associates to come in on your PD days and your cooks and whatnot? How's that, and your bus drivers, if you need to run extra routes, how's that going to save us?
It's not going to save a ton of money.
That's not the purpose, it's to
No.
save us money.
No, I believe Cardinal saved maybe $15,000 or $20,000, so it's not a money-saving thing. So with that, it is 7:30. We'll kind of hang around here for a little bit. Again, I know Sean said perception. I'm a big believer